Hello everyone, peace be upon you. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and stay with me until the end of the story. Also, leave a comment telling me which city and country you're watching from. I'd love to see how far my story has reached. For those of you who have already subscribed, I sincerely wish you good health, ease in all your affairs, abundant blessings, and may all your hopes and dreams come true. Amen. Now, let's begin the story. The New Mexico sun was already sharp when Kate Monroe stepped onto the drill yard at Fort Clayborne. Heat rose from the packed dirt, turning the air above the painted lines into a shimmer. She adjusted her patrol cap, checked the time, and let her gaze move down the ranks. Boots heel to toe, rifles at rest, faces forward. Most looked alert. A few were pretending. She had seen that posture 1,000 times, shoulders set, chin high, eyes dull. It meant they thought her instructions were suggestions. "On my command," Kate said, voice flat, carrying across the yard without a shout. The line stiffened. She walked the front, slow, even, measuring distance and discipline in the same glance. "You're here to learn standards. Not to look tough for a camera or your buddies." Dylan Mercer stood 3 files back on Bravo Squad. Taller than most, chest out, smirk faint like he thought it didn't show. He watched Kate the way certain men watched stop signs, only long enough to decide they could roll through. She didn't look at him directly. Not yet. She made a note, boots dusty, sling loose, elbow flared. Sloppy by choice. Colonel Nathan Briggs watched from the shade outside the command center, arms crossed. He liked order. He liked numbers on a board, training milestones achieved, injuries low. He also liked problems to stay quiet. Kate knew that, had known it since her second week on base. Fix it fast, fix it clean, don't make it loud. She could work with that as long as the standard held. Captain Laura Reeves stepped up beside Briggs with a tablet under her arm. She caught Kate's eye, gave a small nod, the kind you share when you've already discussed what needs to happen. Reeves handled the paperwork, the schedules, the 1,000 details that kept a training cycle moving. Kate handled the room. Shoulder arms. Dress right, dress. The line adjusted. A lag beat later than she wanted. Kate stopped at a recruit whose stock was crooked. Fix it. No lecture, no second sentence. The recruit moved quick. At Mercer, she halted. Not a long stare. Just enough. Sling tight, she said. Elbow in. Show me you know the difference between casual and correct. Roger, Mercer replied, the word flat around a smile. He tightened the sling. Elbow still a little wide. Not ignorance. Message received but returned with a wink. She held his eyes for one more second, then moved on. Discipline was a habit. You enforced it 1 inch at a time until the inches added up. The wind pushed dust across the yard and rattled the chain-link far fence. From the motor pool, a forklift beeped in steady pulses. Overhead, a hawk turned circles on a hot updraft. It was an ordinary morning at Fort Clayborne, which was exactly how Kate liked it before she pushed a platoon into stress. Order first, pressure second. If you reverse the order, something always cracked in the wrong place. She brought them through facing movements, rifle positions, a brisk inspection. No speeches. She corrected by touch and short phrases, a hand to a forearm, a tap at a shoulder seam. When someone overcorrected, she cut it down to the precise motion and reset them at the start. 10 minutes in, the line looked sharper. 20 minutes in, she saw the first signs of sweat rolling into eyes without breaking bearing. Good. Briggs called across the yard. Monroe. After drill, quick brief. Copy, she said, without turning. She knew what it would be. Numbers, timelines, maybe a reminder about a visiting team next week, the kind that walks with clipboards and finds mismatched bolts on a rack. She didn't mind scrutiny. The standard should pass whether someone watched or not. She dismissed the formation to water and shade, then set the cadre to reset lanes for the next block. Reeves crossed the yard. Briggs wants the plan for integrating the new recruits into night exercises. Her tone said it was routine. Her eyes said watch Bravo Squad. I saw it, Kate said. Mercer's signaling. He wants an audience. You want me to move him to another squad? Not yet. She uncapped a bottle, drank once, capped it again. If he learns, we save time. If he performs, we document and move on. If he pushes, we show where the line is. They headed to the command center. Inside, the air was cold and the lights buzzed. Monitors scrolled training schedules and readiness charts. Briggs pointed to a board. We're on pace. Keep it that way. We're getting eyes from DC sooner than planned. He meant oversight. He meant reputation. Anything I need to worry about? No, Kate said. She told the truth. There was no problem yet. There was only a man testing a door that looked unlocked. Back on the yard, the heat had set in for real. She ran the squads through movement under command, then broke them into teams for problem-solving drills, simple, practical, designed to teach communication under noise. She watched for who listened, who repeated orders, who drifted. Mercer liked to talk over people. She made a note with time and context. Notes weren't threats. They were maps. During a reset, Mercer cracked a line to the soldier next to him and let his muzzle dip toward Kate's lane. Not aimed. Not safe. She walked over, tapped the barrel back to vertical. Keep that downrange. It was, he said. It wasn't, she said, and held his gaze until the half-smile fell off his face. Do not make me repeat myself. He inhaled like he might answer, then didn't. Good. She turned to the squad. We're moving to the confidence course. Helmets on. Gloves if you have them. We are not racing, we are learning to move right under fatigue. They jogged. Sun hammered. Sweat stung. Dust stuck to faces and necks. At the first wall, she demonstrated hand placement and foot drive, then stepped aside and watched. At the rope, she corrected grip and told them to use their legs. She kept the tempo steady. When someone slipped, she reset them without sarcasm. When someone nailed the technique, she said, "That's it," and moved on. The yard was a metronome set to her pace. At the end of the block, Reeves met her with a clipboard. Medical wants heads up. Heat index climbing. 10-minute cool down, water, shade, Kate said. Then one more set of movement and we break. Mercer wiped sweat from his eyes and looked across the formation at her like he was waiting for a stage cue. She didn't give him one. She put the stage away. On me, she called. Last set. We finish clean. The final block ran smoother than the first. When she dismissed them, the shoulders were lower and the posture made sense. She could see the start of a unit inside the scattered pieces. It was enough for an opening day. Reeves fell into step as the yard emptied. You're thinking, she said. I'm watching patterns, Kate said. Small things tell you where the big break will try to happen. You expecting one? I plan like it's a yes, she said, and looked back at the silent lanes. The fence rattled again in a gust. Somewhere a radio squawked and cut off. She turned toward the armory to log rifles back in, feeling the heat press between shoulder blades like a hand. Across the yard, Mercer lingered with two soldiers, laughing at nothing. He glanced her way, then away again. It was a look that said he still believed the stop sign was optional. Kate didn't change her pace. She didn't need to. The line was already there. The next time he tested it, there would be no doubt what happened next. The next time he tested it came before lunch. Heat pressed down, the yard shimmered, and Bravo squad formed up for rifle handling. Kate walked the line, checking slings and safeties, eyes steady, pace even. Muzzle awareness, she said. You keep it down range. You do not sweep your buddies. You do not sweep me. You do not get creative with a weapon in your hands. She stopped 2 soldiers shy of Mercer and corrected a grip, then a stance. Short phrases, no drama. At Mercer she paused. His sling was tight this time, but his elbow drifted again like a dare. Elbow in, she said. Show me you can listen. He smirked. Roger that. Demonstrate low ready, she said. He moved slow and casual, muzzle angling too far left. She tapped it back. Downrange. Downrange, he repeated, eyes on her, not the lane. She stepped right to check the next soldier. In that half-beat, Mercer shifted his weight and let the rifle swing like a club, a quick side stroke meant to startle. The stock clipped the side of her temple with a hard, ugly crack. Sound thinned and then rushed back all at once. A flash of white lit the edge of her vision. She did not fall. She planted her feet, grabbed the forestock, and locked the weapon in place against his pull. You're done, she said, voice low and flat. Do not move. For a second he grinned like it was a joke that would land. Then he saw her eyes and the grin died. Reeves was already moving, whistle to her lips, cadre closing on the squad. 2 instructors pinned Mercer's arms. Kate handed the rifle off and pressed 2 fingers to the cut at her hairline. They came away red. Medical to the yard, Reeves called, already on the radio. Command, secure Bravo squad. Initiate stand fast. Colonel Briggs stepped from the doorway, face tight. What happened? Assault, Kate said, steady. He struck me with his stock. Witnesses present. Mercer's mouth opened. It was an accident. It wasn't, she said, without looking at him. You swung on purpose. You put that on the record. Briggs swallowed. The lines around his eyes hardened. Lock it down, he told Reeves. All squads confined. Weapons cleared and returned. No one moves without permission. Sirens snapped to life across Fort Clayborne, a repeating tone that cut through the heat. Military police trucks rolled from the motor pool, lights strobing blue and red against tan buildings. Dust rose in sheets as they crossed the yard. MPs took Mercer, cuffed and wide-eyed now that the moment felt larger than his mouth. A medic reached Kate, peeled a glove, checked the cut, and pressed gauze to stop the bleed. You dizzy? I'm upright, she said. Document the injury. Take pictures. Keep the glove with blood. Chain of custody from the start. Reeves pushed a clipboard into a sergeant's hands. Witness statements now. Names, times, exact words. Briggs's radio crackled. He listened, jaw set. We're notifying DC, he said quietly to Kate. You good to stand for 5? I'm good to stand, she said. Then I'll sit where you want me and give a clean statement. He nodded and turned to the yard. All units. Base lockdown. Level 2. Training suspended. No outside comms. Kate looked at Mercer. The bravado was gone. Sweat ran through the dust on his face in crooked lines. He worked his jaw like words might still save him. They wouldn't. He had crossed a line with witnesses, cameras, and procedure under a microscope. In the infirmary, the lights were cold and the air smelled like antiseptic. A camera clicked as a medic photographed the cut from 3 angles. Reeves stood at the end of the exam bed scrolling a checklist. Security pulled yard footage, she said. Multiple angles. Clean audio from your lane mic. Good, Kate said. The sting from the antiseptic made her eyes water. She blinked it away. We'll need logs on prior corrections. Times I told him muzzle awareness, sling, elbow. I have them, Reeves said. You time-stamped everything. Briggs stepped in, cap in his hands. The muscles in his jaw hadn't unclenched. I've spoken to Division, he said. You'll write the initial incident memo as soon as the medic clears you. MPs are processing Mercer. Phones are on emergency channel only. He hesitated, then added, General Barrett is en route. He's bringing Connor and Whitmore. Kate held his gaze. Understood. He looked at the gauze taped at her hairline. You sure you don't want time? I'll rest after the memo, she said. Then I'll brief them with you. He nodded once and left. Reeves exhaled. 3 generals, she said. That's a lot of stars for one swing. It's not one swing, Kate said. It's everything that makes a swing like that feel possible. The medic finished a neat line of sutures, covered the wound, and stepped back. You're cleared to work from a chair, he said. No field until we recheck you this afternoon. Copy, Kate said, and slid off the bed. Her legs were solid. Her head throbbed in a slow, honest way that told the truth about bone and skin. She could use that information without letting it use her. In the command center, screens showed frozen frames from the yard, Mercer's posture before, the blur of the stock, her hands on the forestock, MPs moving. Reeves set a laptop on a steel table and opened a document. Dictate, she said. Kate spoke clean sentences. Location, date, time, weather, formation, instructions issued, corrections made, specific warnings to Mercer, the strike, immediate actions, chain of custody, medical treatment, witnesses identified, video secured. No adjectives. No heat. Halfway through, the base gate camera popped onto the main screen. Dust plumes rose beyond the checkpoint. 3 black SUVs came into view, headlights on, big and deliberate against the pale road. A helicopter circled wider than the fence line, slow and watchful. Briggs stood behind them, cap back on, spine straight. No one spoke for a full 10 seconds. The room didn't need a speech. It needed exact work. Kate kept dictating, her voice even over the hum of the air system and the distant siren tone that still cycled through the loudspeakers. Outside, the SUVs turned through the gate and rolled toward the parade square, tires crunching gravel. The screens caught the flash of stars on shoulders as the first doors opened and the generals stepped into the white noonlight, their shadows short and hard on the concrete. The generals crossed the parade square without breaking stride. Barrett led, Connor a half step to his right, Whitmore just behind. Briggs met them at the door of the command center, saluted, and stepped aside. No handshakes. No small talk. Dust trailed in at their boots as they entered the operations floor and stopped in front of the main screens. Sergeant Monroe, Barrett said, eyes on the frozen frame of Mercer mid-swing. You steady? I am, Kate said. The bandage at her temple itched under the lights. She ignored it. Good, Barrett said. Roll it. Reeves cued the feeds. The yard came to life, Kate's correction, Mercer's shift, the quick, ugly strike, the immediate lockdown. Audio bled through, whistle, commands, boots, the siren rising. Connor leaned closer to the screen, jaw tight. Whitmore watched Kate more than the video, weighing posture, tone, restraint. When the clip ended, Barrett kept his eyes on the last frame for a long beat, then turned. This isn't a misunderstanding, he said. It's a failure of discipline and culture. Lockdown stays. We expand the cordon inside the wire. Every weapon accounted for. Every squad leader interviewed. We do this by the book. Already in motion, Briggs said, voice controlled. He flicked a look at Kate. Monroe has the incident memo. Witness statements underway. Good, Barrett said. He looked to Kate. You'll lead the internal assessment with Captain Reeves. Connor will handle policy implications. Whitmore and I will conduct command interviews. He didn't ask if she was willing. He assigned the job like he already knew the answer. Kate nodded once. Copy. MPs brought Mercer into a side room 2 doors down from the main floor. Glass on one side, camera in the upper corner, table bolted to the slab. Reeves handed Kate a thin folder, training notes, prior corrections, timestamps. He's cycling between cocky and scared, Reeves said. You'll get the truth if he thinks there's still a path out. There isn't, Kate said, and opened the door. Mercer looked smaller without a rifle. The set of his shoulder said he wanted to look relaxed, but the cuff said he couldn't sell it. Kate sat across from him, placed the folder on the table, and pressed record on the small red button near the glass. State your name, rank, and unit, she said. He did. His voice was steady for the first 2 words, then thin on the third. You were instructed on muzzle awareness at 0920. You acknowledged. At 10:14 you struck me with your stock. Why? It was an accident, he said. I shifted Anne. She slid a still image across the table, the moment the stock moved, his eyes on her, not the lane. Then a second still, her hand on the forestock, his follow-through. That's deliberate, she said. Try again. His mouth worked. He glanced at the glass. Look, Sarge. Staff Sergeant, she said. And no. You're not negotiating. You're recording. He swallowed. I was tired. The sun. The entire platoon was tired. Only one man swung. Why? He dropped his eyes. He stopped, started over. You talk like your rules are the only rules. They are the only rules on my yard, she said. And on any yard with a weapon out. He looked up, anger flaring like a cheap match. You think you're the only one who can call shots because you wear rank and everyone wants to impress you. Half the guys. She didn't blink. Finish it. He let the match burn down to his fingers and winced. Half the guys think you push harder because you're trying to prove something. And do you think that justifies striking an instructor? His face sagged. The anger folded back into fear. No. Then why? He stared at the bolted table. I wanted to see if you'd flinch, he said, voice small now. If you'd jump. You found out, she said. She killed the recorder, stood, and knocked twice on the glass. MPs opened the door. Return him to holding. Secure the file. Whitmore intercepted her in the corridor. You kept it clean, he said, not smiling. Approval in his tone, not his face. I'm not here for a performance, Kate said. I'm here to make sure the standard holds. Barrett and Connor were with Briggs in the conference room. Charts lined the wall, training cycles, incident logs, personnel rosters. Connor pointed to a column where minor conduct discrepancies had been marked, counseled, and closed. There's a pattern, he said. Verbal notes, no follow-through. Briggs bristled. We move fast here. We correct at the lowest level. And some corrections never leave the hallway, Connor said. That works until it doesn't. Barrett sat, hands flat on the table. Monroe, you'll draft immediate actions, reinforce weapons handling, refresh instructor authority protocols, and set mandatory reporting thresholds. Reeves will help. I want measurable checkpoints by this evening. Understood, Kate said. Reeves slid into the seat beside her and opened a blank document. We'll break it into phases, she murmured. Phase 1 is safety and comms. Phase 2 is culture and oversight. Phase 3 is sustainment. Make Phase 1 painful, Barrett said. Painful gets attention. Kate wrote, all live and inert weapons checked twice, sign off by 2 cadre, lane mics hot and recorded for all evolutions, cadence controlled by instructor only, violations immediate removal plus written counseling, squad leaders accountable for echoing commands verbatim. She set time hacks next to each bullet and assigned owners. Reeves translated notes into orders and pushed drafts to the printer. Outside, the base sounded different. Lockdown quiet has a weight. No cadence calls. No engine starting. Just the distant thud of a door and the periodic radio click. MPs moved steady loops. The flag at the mast barely stirred. Interviews stacked. Squad leaders, then recruits from Bravo, then adjacent lanes. The stories matched. Mercer smirked, Mercer pushed boundaries, Mercer hit. No one claimed surprise, which told its own story about what people had been willing to ignore. Kate listened, asked short clarifying questions, and didn't editorialize. She logged language exactly as delivered. Reeves tagged each entry with time, place, and the witness's role. By mid-afternoon, the room smelled like paper and coffee. Barrett took a call under the window and kept his voice low. When he hung up, he spoke to the table. Pentagon is tracking. They want a preliminary by 1900 and a reform outline by 08 tomorrow. They also want to know why this wasn't prevented. Briggs' mouth tightened. We train hard. We fix what we see. You didn't want noise, Kate said quietly, not looking at him, looking at the policy column. Noise can be useful. Briggs didn't answer. Whitmore did. Useful noise prevents sirens later. Connor slid a thin packet across to Kate. Template for a base-wide conduct refresher. Modify it for Clayborne. Add a piece on instructor authority and gender dynamics, plain language, not a lecture. We're not here to fight the culture war. We're here to enforce standards that apply to everyone. Kate wrote it clean. Respect is not optional, authority is not up for debate on a hot range, you can disagree later, you cannot disobey now, harassment is misconduct, not humor, if you see something, speak, if you don't, you own it when it breaks. Reeves formatted it for a briefing slide deck and for a one-page handout that could live on a wall where eyes actually go, outside the armory, next to the water buffalo, at the chow hall door. At 1600, MPs brought Mercer back through the corridor toward processing. He glanced through the glass at the ops floor. He saw the generals. He saw the stacks of statements. He saw Kate writing, not looking up. He seemed to understand that whatever story he had told himself about power was over. Barrett called the command staff to the floor and spoke without raising his voice. Effective immediately, Fort Clayborne remains locked down. All training paused until safety checks and briefings are complete. Administrative separation proceedings begin for Corporal Mercer. Squad leaders will read the conduct memo to every soldier in their charge by 1800. At 1900, I briefed DC with Sergeant Monroe's preliminary assessment attached. Tomorrow morning we run the first reform block under her lead. He paused. This is not performative. It is corrective. If you have a problem with the pace or the fact that a staff sergeant is writing the play, take it up with me. After we are done. No one spoke. Reeves sent the orders. The printer spat paper like a small engine. Kate stood, tucked the preliminary under a clip, and handed it to Barrett. It's precise, she said. No adjectives. That's why it'll travel, he said, and took it. Evening light cut low through the blinds, throwing long bars across the floor. They ate in shifts from plastic trays someone had dropped on a side table. The base stayed quiet. Radios clicked. Boots moved. The sun slid behind the far ridge, and the heat finally let go. At 1858, Reeves hit send on the preliminary packet. The progress bar crept, then cleared. Barrett rolled his shoulders once and took the secure line at the end of the room. Whitmore stood with arms folded, eyes on the glass. Connor paged through the conduct memo, pen tapping once at the section on non-negotiable commands. Kate looked at the yard on the camera feed. The lanes were empty. The fence still. The siren had long since stopped. Fort Clayborne looked orderly, like it always did from 30 feet up, and she knew better than to trust that view. Order you couldn't prove was just quiet before the next noise. Barrett began his briefing to DC, voice firm, even. Kate listened to cadence, not content. Clean. Unapologetic. She liked that. When he finished, he set the handset down and turned back to the room. Now we shut the base down to reset it, he said. Not for an hour. Not for a headline. For as long as it takes to make sure this never happens again. For as long as it takes, became the rule at Fort Clayborne by sunrise. The base woke to silence and checkpoints. MPs stood at intersections, cadre at armories, squad leaders outside barracks doors with clipboards. Engines stayed cold. No PT. No cadence calls. Orders moved on radios and paper. Kate was on the floor at 05:30, coffee gone, bandage fresh, briefing slides open. Reeves lined up schedules, safety blocks, authority blocks, reporting thresholds, all color-coded because clarity saves time when patience is thin. Barrett gathered command in the ops bay. We start with weapons, he said. Nothing leaves a rack until it's inspected twice and signed by two. Then we address culture. Sergeant Monroe has the deck. He stepped back without ceremony. Eyes shifted to Kate. Some were curious, some skeptical, a few hard. She didn't care which. Phase 1, Kate said, voice even. Safety. Lane mics hot, recorded. Instructor controls tempo. Any muzzle sweep gets you pulled. Any argument gets you written. There's no shade on this. Questions go to the end of the block. She clicked. Phase 2. Authority. Orders are not a conversation. You disagree later. You do not freelance on a hot line. If you're a leader and you smirk while I'm speaking, I will call you out by name because your face is instruction to your formation. A couple of jaws clenched. She didn't look for who. Phase 3. Sustainment. Anonymous reporting box in 3 locations, checked twice daily by Reeves and me. Monthly audits. Surprise checks. If you don't like surprise checks, fix your process so you're ready when they happen. Connor nodded from the side. Whitmore watched the room, reading who bristled, who leaned forward, who looked relieved. Briggs kept his arms crossed. When the briefing ended, Barrett gave the only punctuation it needed. Execute. The morning moved like a drill with no wasted motion. Rifles came out, got inspected, logged, and handed back like they were on loan from a stricter world. Squad leaders read the conduct memo aloud with MPs listening. Some stumbled on the part about harassment not being humor. Reeves corrected the wording where a phrase could be twisted into a joke and sent a cleaner print to the doors where eyes actually lingered. At 08, Kate took the first training block to the yard. The camera mast stared down like extra instructors. She addressed the formation face to face. What happened yesterday was simple. A soldier struck an instructor. You saw the response. Today is simpler. You learn the standard, you hold it, and you go home. You don't, and you go home a different way. No threats. Straight lines. They moved through dry drills, then to blank rounds. On the third iteration, a staff sergeant at the far end tried to add his own cadence over the lane mic, a petty power move to show he still mattered. Kate's head turned. Kill his channel, she said to Reeves. The mic cut off with a clean click. She walked the long way down the line so everyone would see the time it took. Staff Sergeant Collins, she said when she reached him. You will not run a competing cadence on my lane. Step off. We'll talk in the office. He opened his mouth. She lifted one finger. Do not test whether the rule applies to you because you've been here longer. He closed it. She nodded once and turned back. The line stayed quiet after that. By mid-morning, the base looked different without looking different. Same buildings, same dust, same heat. New posture. People moved like there was a camera on them because there was, but more than that, because there was a consequence on the other side of the frame. Mercer's separation paperwork moved through signatures in a fluorescent-lit office near processing. He tried to push for a conversation with anyone who might listen. MPs did not schedule his feelings. Pentagon called at 10. Barrett took the line on speaker so the room would hear the stakes. Questions came fast. Why wasn't this caught in counseling? What's the reporting threshold? How do you quantify cultural shift? Connor answered policy. Reeves answered process. Kate answered practice. We count compliance at the point of contact, she said. We record lane commands and match them to actions. If the words don't match the movement, we adjust the words or the leader. We don't wait for a quarterly brief to find out someone freelances under stress. Who owns enforcement? A voice asked. I do until the standard holds without me, Kate said. Then the command owns it. And if they drop it, I'll say so in writing. Silence on the line, then, proceed. The call ended. Briggs blew out a slow breath. He looked like a man realizing an old trick wouldn't work anymore. Keep outcomes clean and noise low. Noise had become the tool. Whitmore drifted over. You kept it narrow, he told Kate. Narrow is how you get buy-in when people want to fight about words. I'm not here to fight about words, she said. I'm here to change behavior. At noon, Barrett ordered a base-wide assembly, no parade, no speeches, just every squad in the shade of the vehicle bays with a PA that worked. He took the mic. Fort Clayborne isn't broken, he said. But parts of it have been lazy. Lazy turns to dangerous when no one says the quiet part out loud. Yesterday made the quiet part loud. Today we fix it, and we keep it fixed. He handed the mic to Kate. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. What you tolerate becomes your standard, she said. If you laugh when someone sweeps a muzzle, you just taught your squad a joke that will ruin somebody's life. If you roll your eyes when a woman gives a command, you told your formation they can pick which orders count. If you're tired, hydrate. If you're angry, breathe. If you can't do those things, you're not ready for a rifle or a team. That's it. A murmur of radios, a clink of metal settling, nothing else. The message landed because it was not dressed up. The climax came without theatrics. It was a decision delivered like a sentence. At 1300, Briggs and Barrett walked into processing. Mercer stood when they entered, reflex still stronger than self-pity. Barrett read the separation order: assault on an instructor, conduct prejudicial, immediate administrative discharge, privileges revoked, access revoked, transport arranged. Mercer started to argue and stalled out on the second word when he saw he was arguing with the last step in the chain. He sat. The pen looked too heavy in his hand. Outside, Reeves ran the first mentor brief with junior leaders. Here's how you correct without turning correction into theater. Here's how you don't confuse sarcasm with authority. Here's how you log what matters so the next cadre isn't guessing what you saw. Collins sat front row now, quiet, taking notes like he understood he'd been given a second path. At 14:30, the reform block went live. Squad leaders read the one-page handout in their own words. Some sounded stiff, some natural. It didn't matter. The words were on the wall now, at the chow hall, at the armory door, next to the water buffalo. You couldn't miss them and claim you didn't know. Reeves placed an anonymous box at the latrine entrance because traffic is data. Whitmore watched two soldiers slow down to read the small print. Connor drafted a memo tying compliance to evaluation so the incentive wasn't just moral, it was measurable. Kate circled the yard, bandage pulling a little under sweat. She saw fewer smirks. She saw a private correct a buddy's sling without looking at her first. That mattered more than a speech. She logged it in her head and in a note because good change also needs a record. Late afternoon, the heat eased just enough to breathe. Barrett came up beside her at the fence line. "This is the turn," he said. "Not the finish." "I'm not writing a finish," she said. "I'm writing a way to keep changing." He nodded. "You'll brief the first night results to DC at 1900. Then you'll sleep." "I'll brief," she said. Sleep could fight for a slot on the schedule like everything else. When the sun slid behind the ridge, Clayborne felt different again. Not quiet like a lid. Quiet like a system clicking into the next gear. The cameras kept their red dots. The MPs kept their loops. The squads kept their distance and their muzzles where they belonged. In the infirmary reflection on a dark window, Kate saw the small white square of bandage near her hairline and didn't think about pain. She thought about process. In the ops bay, Reeves stacked the day's forms by category: interviews, inspections, removals, corrections, commendations, and labeled the binders so a stranger could find proof in 3 minutes. Connor highlighted the places where policy would need a tweak above their pay grade. Whitmore wrote 3 lines in a notebook and closed it. Briggs stood with his hands on the rail and watched the yard he thought he knew. At 1859, Kate clicked into the secure line and opened her notes. The red light went solid. "Fort Clayborne, Day 1 reset," she said, and began, clean, unhurried, every number tied to a name, every action tied to a standard, every standard tied to an owner. Outside, the flag stirred in a small wind that finally made it past the motor bays, and the base held its breath for the next order, and when it came, it was simple. Maintain posture. Execute the plan. Report without delay. Kate hung up the secure line and looked around the ops bay. Reeves handed her a short list of follow-ups, already sorted by urgency. Connor closed his laptop with the first round of policy notes queued for DC. Whitmore gave a small nod that meant proceed. Briggs finally exhaled like a man who had been waiting for permission to accept the obvious. Morning broke cleaner. Not lighter, just cleaner. Checkpoints stayed. The cameras stayed. The pace settled into something sustainable instead of frantic. Kate walked the yard with a clipboard and a radio. She checked racks, logs, and the new sign-off sheets that required 2 cadre for every weapon issue. She asked 3 questions at each stop. What did you change? What still feels fragile? What will break if we stop watching? The answers were better than yesterday and honest enough to use. Bravo squad formed for a refresher. No rifles at first. Hands only. Commands read out loud, echoed back, matched to movement. When rifles did come out, they came out under a mic that recorded every word Kate said. She set the tempo and never let it drift. She pulled one soldier for a sweep and sent him to a shaded bench with a copy of the conduct memo and a pen. He returned 10 minutes later with the memo signed and his focus where it belonged. That was the new rhythm. Correct. Document. Return to standard. Move on. Reeves ran the anonymous box circuit. 3 slips by noon. 2 were trash. 1 was not. It named a squad leader who rolled his eyes during the authority brief and muttered that things would go back to normal once the generals left. Reeves checked the time, the location, and who could have heard it. She found the leader on a motor pool stairwell and asked him to repeat himself. He tried to laugh it off. She wrote his words down exactly and handed him a counseling form. He signed and read the authority section to his squad again, this time without commentary. He was not fired. He was observed. Barrett held a short huddle at 1000. We don't fix culture with a press release, he said. We fix it with friction and follow-through. You will get tired of repeating yourself. Repeat yourself anyway. When people stop testing the fence, we can move the posts. Not before. He pointed at the board. Mercer's transport departs at 13:30. Process him without ceremony. No speeches. No audience. Processing did not stall. Mercer handed over his ID, his access card, and the last of his issued gear. He signed the discharge packet. He signed the property form. He signed the acknowledgement of loss of benefits. He asked 2 questions no one could answer the way he wanted. Then he walked to a white van with an MP on each side and looked back at the building like maybe memory could argue for him. It could not. The door closed. The van rolled. That chapter ended with a moving vehicle and a lot of empty air where his ego used to be. At 13:45, the yard felt different again. Lighter, but not loose. Kate took Beta Squad through the confidence course with Reeves shadowing on the perimeter. They moved well. They corrected each other without sniping. When someone stumbled, 2 hands helped instead of 3 voices laughing. Kate didn't celebrate it. She just said, "Good," and kept the line moving. Connor drafted the first formal policy addendum to pair with what they were doing on the ground. Instructor authority is not negotiable on a hot line. Disagreement routes through after action, not during action. Harassment is misconduct. Non-compliance triggers removal. Documentation is mandatory and standardized. He sent it to Barrett, who sent it to Division, who sent back a request to expand it for other bases. That was fast. That was also the point. Whitmore met with Briggs in a side office. The door was open on purpose. "Your numbers looked good for a long time," Whitmore said. "They looked good because you wanted quiet." "I wanted results," Briggs said. He did not raise his voice. "I believed in fixing things at the lowest level." "Lowest level is not the hallway," Whitmore said. "Lowest level is the form you actually sign." Briggs didn't argue. He looked older by a week. "I understand." "Then say it to your staff," Whitmore said. "They will follow what you admit out loud." Briggs pulled his cadre together by the water buffalo at 1400. He did not read a speech. He said 3 sentences. "We missed things because we liked quiet. We will not miss them again. If you need permission to write it down, you have it." The room did not clap. It did not need to. Half the fight with a culture is getting the leader to speak plain. By late afternoon, Kate started seeing what she had been waiting for. A private paused at the armory door to reread the 1 page. A team leader corrected a buddy without looking over his shoulder to check whether an officer was watching. A staff sergeant who had made himself small in the morning raised a hand and asked for a walkthrough on how to log a borderline issue. Reeves showed him. She did not make it a lesson. She made it a habit. At 1700, Barrett called for a short AAR with the generals, Briggs, Reeves, and Kate. No slides. Just facts. Reeves reported compliance metrics, weapons checks at 100%, counseling forms filed in real time, anonymous box checks twice completed. Kate reported training outcomes, 3 pulls for sweeps, all returned after written acknowledgement, 0 repeat violations, lane commands matched in playback. Connor reported policy movement, addendum accepted in draft for wider use, feedback pending on language around gender dynamics to keep it plain and enforceable. Whitmore reported leadership posture, 2 visible shifts for the better, 1 holdout moving toward neutral. Barrett listened and then said what mattered. "This is working because the standard is simple and the consequences are near," he said. "We will keep both. Tomorrow we lift parts of the lockdown in phases. If the trend holds, we move to normal operations under a tighter frame. If the trend slips, we slow again. We are not racing the news cycle. We are building a base that teaches itself to behave." After the AAR, Reeves found Kate at the fence line. The wind was calmer. The flag moved enough to be alive without snapping. "You could breathe," Reeves said. "I am," Kate said. She meant it. The headache was a dull line. The yard looked sharp. The checklists looked like tools instead of chores. "Pentagon wants you on a secure VTC in the morning," Reeves said. They want the how in your own words. They'll get the how and none of the drama, Kate said. We're not selling a story. We're publishing a procedure. They walked back toward the ops bay. Collins was outside the door with a small stack of his own forms. He looked at Kate like a man who had been corrected in front of a formation and decided to get better instead of bitter. "Ma'am," he said, and offered the stack. "Pulled 2 today." Both returned. "No repeats." "Good," she said. "Keep it boring." He smiled once, quick. "Working on it." Night settled. Not heavy. Honest. The base did not hold its breath anymore. It breathed on schedule. Chow, lights, checks. MPs walked. Cadre debriefed. Radios clicked in short, clean bursts. In the infirmary, a medic changed Kate's bandage and said the cut was healing straight. In the corridor, a recruit who had flinched when her voice rose yesterday lifted his chin to answer her tonight. He still looked scared of messing up. He did not look scared of her. In the ops bay, Reeves stacked binders on a shelf where a new label read Day 1 Reset and Day 2 Sustainment. Connor finished a paragraph about audit cadence and sent it upstairs. Whitmore put his notebook away and told Barrett he would stay one more day and then get out of the way. Briggs stood in the doorway and watched his base like he was seeing it, not posing with it. Kate sat for a minute and let the room talk around her. She did not need to be in every sentence anymore. That was the sign she looked for. She opened her notebook and wrote a line for tomorrow's brief. Simple standard. Near consequence. Honest leadership. Repeat. She closed the book and stood. Out on the yard, the red camera dots stared at empty lanes. The fence rattled once in a soft gust. Somewhere, a boot scraped. Somewhere, a door shut. No siren. No rush. Just order that could be proven, and people who knew how to keep it without her standing on their shoulder. The base did not hold its breath now. It owned it. And when morning came, the next order would be the same as the last. Maintain posture. Execute the plan. Report without delay. The words held into the morning as Clayborne shifted from reset to routine. Lockdown eased in phases under Barrett's schedule. Gates stayed controlled, but engines started again. Formation returned to the yard with the cameras still recording and the lane mics still hot. Kate stood at the rail with Reeves, checking the day's plan against the clock. Nothing dramatic. Just the new normal proving itself on time. At 07, Barrett assembled command for a short brief. "We lift training to 70% today," he said. "Weapons protocols unchanged. Authority block repeats at noon for anyone not present yesterday. Anonymous box checks at 10 and 16. Sergeant Monroe will run a spot audit without notice. If you need to ask when, you already failed the audit." No one smiled. They wrote it down and moved. Kate crossed the yard to Bravo, now led by a staff sergeant who had learned how to be specific. Hands. Voice. Movement, she said, and watched the echo. It matched. At the second station, a private hesitated with a muzzle near a shoulder. The team leader caught it first, tapped the barrel, said, "Downrange," and moved on. Kate logged the correction out of habit and let it stand as the proof it was. The standard was living in the line, not just in a memo. Reeves looped through the armory and the chow hall door. 2 slips in the box by 1000. One pointed to a locker room joke that crossed the line into harassment. She took it to the squad leader, who did not argue, did not hide it, did not say he would handle it quietly. He read the memo, wrote the form, and stood in front of his formation to make the correction visible. The soldier who cracked the joke signed a counseling statement and apologized without a stage. He returned to work. The process worked because everyone knew the steps and the steps were not optional. Connor joined Kate at the command rail with a printed draft stamped in red. Division wants to roll your protocol to other training bases, he said. They're asking for a short guide in plain language. You'll get it by tonight, Kate said. Working title, do it now, write it down, show your work. Whitmore checked in with Briggs at the corner of the ops bay. You look rested, he said. I'm not, Briggs answered, honest now in a way he hadn't been on day one. But I'm clear. Clarity is rest you can spend, Whitmore said. Use it. By midday, Barrett opened the line to the Pentagon VTC and slid the microphone to Kate. No preamble. No spin. Fort Clayborne Day 3, she said. Weapons checks at 100%, dual signatures verified. Lane command compliance at 98.4, down from 98.7 yesterday because we widened observation. 3 counseling statements filed in real time. 2 returns to standard. 1 removal pending review for repeat sarcasm during command echo. Anonymous reporting producing usable data at a predictable rate. Leadership posture holding. She paused. We are not selling a mood. We are logging behavior. We can replicate it. A voice from DC asked, how do you keep this from becoming theater when the stars go home? We point the camera back at ourselves, Kate said. We record our own commands, we audit our own logs, and we make the numbers public inside the base. If someone wants to perform, they'll perform the right thing. And your commanders? The voice asked. They're on record, she said. We wrote the standard into evaluation bullets. Miss it, it shows up where it matters. Proceed, the voice said, and the call ended with less noise than it began. In the afternoon, Kate ran the spot audit. No warning. She walked into a lane at the halfway mark of a drill and said, freeze. She checked safeties, slings, elbow angles, and the last 5 commands against the mic recording. One discrepancy, a squad leader added an unlogged step to speed things up. She wrote it down, reset the lane, and had him run it again verbatim. He corrected, signed, and stayed in the block. No drama. Correction plus record. Move on. By 1500, the base felt like a place that knew its job. Not perfect. Sustainable. Reeves printed the first, quick guide for squad leaders, 5 boxes, 5 checks, a place for a signature and a time. She taped it where hands would see it before eyes wandered. Collins walked by, glanced at the guide, and said, this helps. That mattered more than any speech. Briggs called his cadre to the water buffalo again. He spoke the line he should have said years ago. If you need me to tell you to write it down, I've failed you. Consider this me not failing you. Heads nodded. It wasn't applause. It was agreement that cost something. Mercer did not return. His name lived in a folder marked completed. No one used him as a cautionary tale in front of a formation because the cautionary tale was the process itself, a clean sequence from violation to consequence to return to standard or separation. People can argue with a person. They have a harder time arguing with steps they watched work twice in a row. As the sun lowered, Connor finished the 2-page rollout for other bases. The title was close to Kate's line. Do it now. Write it down. Show your work. Under that, simple standard. Near consequence. Honest leadership. Repeat. He sent it to Barrett, who sent it up. Whitmore closed his notebook on a single sentence. Culture is a to-do list with a clock. Evening brought the last VTC. Barrett framed it and then stepped aside. Kate gave the day 3 wrap clean. We can lift to 90% operations tomorrow if metrics hold overnight, she said. We will not lift the cameras or the dual signature requirement. We will not drop the anonymous box. We will not stop reading the 1 page. Not because we don't trust our people, but because we do. She waited, then added, standards are a form of trust. If they're clear and enforced, people can get on with their job without guessing what matters. Reeves handed her the first print of the guide formatted for a wall and a pocket. Pick one for the binder, one for the armory door, Reeves said. Kate chose the wall version for the binder and the pocket version for the door because the door needs small words and a place for a thumb. At 19:30, Barrett called the last in-person huddle. "We're done with the crisis," he said. "We're starting the work. Tomorrow we lift. Next week we audit without me on the floor. Next month we teach this somewhere else. Sergeant Monroe, you'll own the initial package. Captain Reeves, you'll own sustainment. Colonel Briggs, you'll own your voice." He looked around. "If anyone misses the old comfort, talk to each other, not down the chain. If you find a hole in the plan, bring it up with a fix attached. Don't go quiet. Quiet is what broke us." They broke the huddle and went back to their tasks. No celebration. The wind was in the lanes running clean without someone shouting to keep them clean. Kate stepped outside and listened. Not for sirens. For ordinary sounds that mean order, a boot on gravel, a radio click, a door closing and then opening again because someone remembered to grab a form. Reeves joined her at the rail. "You going to sleep tonight?" she asked. "I'll write the guide first," Kate said. "Then I'll sleep." "You already wrote the guide," Reeves said, and held up the pocket card. "You've been writing it since 09:14 yesterday." Kate let herself smile once. "Quick. We'll see if it reads the same tomorrow." "It will if we read it," Reeves said. Whitmore stopped on his way to the vehicles. "I'll be gone at dawn," he said. "You don't need me here." "We needed you to say it out loud," Kate said. "Then we're even," he said, and left it there. Connor walked by with a box of binders headed for the mailroom. "Other bases will call this overkill," he said, half grin. "They'll call it a lifesaver after their first near-miss turns into a non-event," Kate said. He nodded. "That's the plan." Briggs came last. No speech. Just a straight look. "Thank you," he said, and it was not for optics. "Keep saying it out loud," she said. He tapped the pocket card at the armory door. "Every morning," he said, and walked on. Night settled. Honest again. The flag moved. The cameras glowed. The base breathed without holding anything back. Kate stood a minute longer and then went inside to finish the guide she had already written by living it. She wrote the last line in the same plain voice she used on the yard. "We are not trying to be perfect. We are trying to be accountable. If we do that on time, the rest follows." She closed the file, backed it up twice, and set the pocket card on top of the binder marked Day 3. Reeves turned off the projector. The ops bay lights hummed and then softened. Outside, a single truck rolled past the window, slow and steady, on a road that belonged to disciplined people doing ordinary work well. That was the lesson, and the end. Not a siren. Not a headline. A standard you could prove, and a base that chose to keep it.